You wake up at 3 a.m. for no reason. Not because of a noise, not because of a dream, just awake, staring at the ceiling. You check your phone. 3:14 a.m. You groan. You try to force your eyes shut. 20 minutes later, you're still there, running through a mental list of everything you should be worried about. Eventually, if you're lucky, you drift back off. In the morning, you tell yourself you slept badly. You call it insomnia. Maybe you've been told it's stress or screens or caffeine or your mattress or too much on your mind. Fix your sleep hygiene and it'll go away. That's the story most of us have absorbed without ever questioning it. That's not quite right. What's actually happening in that 3 a.m. window is older than your job, older than your city, older than agriculture. It might be older than fire itself. And once you see what it actually is, you'll never look at those restless middle-of-the-night minutes the same way again. Let's start with the explanation almost everyone already believes. Modern life broke our sleep. Too much light, too much caffeine, too much stress, too many notifications buzzing at midnight. The fix, we're told, is simple: better habits, a dark room, no phones before bed, and eventually your sleep corrects itself back into one smooth 8-hour block. Tidy, logical, something you could fix with an app. Except that explanation completely falls apart the moment you look at what happens to people who remove modern life entirely. In 1992, psychiatrist Thomas Wehr, working at the National Institute of Mental Health, ran an experiment that deserves to be far more famous than it is. He gathered a group of volunteers and placed them in an environment with 14 hours of total darkness every single night for an entire month. No lamps, no screens, no stray light leaking under a door. Just what a long winter night actually looked like before electricity existed, which, for the overwhelming majority of human history, is exactly what every night looked like. Within a matter of weeks, every single participant, independently, settled into the exact same rhythm. For hours of sleep, then a stretch of quiet, wide-awake stillness, usually 1 to 3 hours, lying calmly in the dark. Then another 4 hours of sleep until morning. Nobody told them to do this. Nobody suggested a schedule. Their bodies simply reorganized themselves around it, as if a program that had been sitting dormant for centuries had suddenly been switched back on. So maybe the question isn't why you wake up at 3 a.m. Maybe the real question is why you ever expected not to. Here's where the story gets stranger, and where the evidence stops being just biological and starts becoming historical. Historian Roger Ekirch spent 16 years digging through archives most people would never think to search: court depositions, prayer manuals, medical texts, personal diaries, letters between ordinary people, even lines buried in Homer's Odyssey. Across all of it, he found more than 500 separate references to something called first sleep and second sleep, not as a rare or unusual practice, as the default, the normal way people described their nights over and over across centuries and across cultures. The pattern these documents describe is remarkably consistent. People went to bed not long after sunset. They slept for roughly 4 hours. Then they woke. Not in distress, not from a nightmare, just naturally, and stayed awake for an hour or two in the middle of the night. Then they returned to sleep for a second 4-hour stretch until dawn. This wasn't insomnia. This wasn't a disorder anyone complained about. This was simply how a night worked. And here's the detail that makes this even more remarkable. Historians had actually been reading these references for a very long time. But for years, translators quietly rendered first sleep into something else entirely. A nap, a doze, a metaphor. Because the idea of two separate sleep periods didn't match their own lived experience of a single continuous night. The assumption ran so deep that scholars essentially edited history to match their own biology, without realizing they were doing it. So what did people actually do during that gap between first and second sleep? The records suggest almost everything you'd expect from quiet, unstructured time. A 16th century French physician reportedly advised couples that the window between sleeps was an ideal time to conceive children, believing the results would be better than during the day. People visited neighbors in the dark. They interpreted the dreams from their first sleep while the details were still vivid. Some simply lay still and thought about their lives, their plans, their worries, their relationships. A medical manual from the 1500s described this period as the ideal window for quiet reflection, when the mind was calm. Which raises an obvious question. Was this middle of the night waking a flaw, or was it doing something? Wehr's modern experiment gives us an answer. During that wakeful window, his subjects' hormone levels weren't just neutral, they were unusual. Blood tests showed elevated levels of prolactin, the same hormone your body releases during deep meditation and after orgasm, a hormone associated with calm, with a kind of physiological stillness. Subjects described the experience as peaceful, clear, almost meditative, closer to the sensation of resting quietly with your eyes open than to lying awake in frustration. This wasn't simply an interruption in sleep. It was its own distinct state of consciousness, a third state separate from waking and separate from sleeping, that functioned like a nightly reset button for the mind. And it's a state that almost nobody alive today has ever consciously experienced, because almost none of us have ever spent a night in total, uninterrupted darkness. So if this rhythm was universal for hundreds of thousands of years, and it wasn't broken, what actually killed it? Not stress, not phones, those came far too late to be the real cause. Not even caffeine. The actual culprit is simpler, and much older than any of those. Light arriving later and later into the night, in increasingly artificial forms. Cities began installing street lamps in the 1600s, Paris among the first, aimed at reducing nighttime crime. Gas lamps followed in the 1800s, pushing usable light even further into the evening. Then, in 1879, Thomas Edison commercialized the electric light bulb, and within roughly one generation, a sleep pattern that had held steady for over 300,000 years quietly disappeared. Not through any single decision, just through the slow, compounding effect of pushing bedtime later and later, one decade at a time, until the entire architecture of the night collapsed into a single block. But sleep wasn't the only thing that changed when artificial light extended into the dark. Something else was lost along with it, something almost nobody connects to sleep at all. Anthropologist Polly Wiesner spent years recording everyday conversations among the Jew/Hoansi Bushmen of the Kalahari Desert, one of the last populations on Earth still living in a way that closely resembles life before artificial light became universal. What she documented was a striking split. During daylight hours, roughly 80% of conversation was practical: who was hunting where, which plants were ready to gather, logistics, negotiations, the business of survival. But once the sun went down and people gathered around the fire, that ratio flipped almost entirely. At night, around 81% of conversation shifted into stories. Myths about the origin of the world, tales of people and places far away, jokes that made the whole group laugh. Darkness, in other words, didn't just create a gap for the body to rest in. It created the very first stage for imagination. Some researchers argue this nightly ritual, practical talk by day, storytelling by firelight, is where human culture as we understand it actually began. The campfire functioned as the first theater, the first classroom, arguably the first form of shared religion. It's plausible that without those long, dark, story-filled hours, human culture would look entirely different today, assuming it existed at all in a recognizable form. Which brings all of this to a single, uncomfortable reframe. That moment at 3 a.m. when you're lying awake, irritated, reaching for your phone to check the time again. That isn't a malfunction. It isn't your body failing to do what it's supposed to do. It's your body attempting to run a program that is more than 300,000 years old, inside an environment that quietly deleted half of that program only a few hundred years ago. You're not broken. You're remembering something your ancestors experienced every single night of their lives, going back further than written history, further than agriculture, further than most of what we consider civilization. So here's a genuinely different way to handle that next 3 a.m. wake up. Don't reach for your phone. Don't turn on a light. Don't treat it as a problem to be solved as quickly as possible. Just lie there in the dark and let your mind wander the way minds were apparently built to wander during that exact window. You might be the first person in your family in 5 or 6 generations to actually feel what nearly every human being who ever lived once felt as a completely ordinary part of being alive.